think that's excessive at all.
I just don't like to look at it that way. And I understand what you're saying, but if you have a given amount for this, fund this, fund that, tax rate, if your economy stays the same, that should always take care of itself with the extra houses you have built, and, you know, your income. You should never have to raise your taxes.
You're saying as the AB increased, it should have increased.
Because otherwise, eventually, you end up over a number of hundreds of years, you're gonna have full taxes, 100% tax.
So we're currently at the rate of 0.0333, bringing in 444,000.
Yes.
And you're recommending that we need an additional $267,209.87. Which my feeling is we don't have to get that money from here. We can get it from Cume Cap. We just have to make sure we raise that rate enough. Because when that state guy was here, he said we could use it for, or whichever, the other one that we're looking at increasing.
Cume Capital, but no, you can't do the two. One's inside the levy and one's outside.
Right, but he did say that we could use that money for bridges. I asked him that question.
Cume Capital?
Whatever the other one that we're looking at, seed it.
Seed it. You're talking about seed it.
Okay.
That's different. That's totally different. That comes from our income taxes. This is to increase the rate at property taxes.
Right.
These two will have.
But, because I'd asked him, and this one, the bridge, could affect our county general amount. So you look at increasing this 267,209, you look at cutting county general 267,209.
Right, and I did, Brandon and I talked after the meeting yesterday, and you gotta remember from what I reported to you the first month, county general just in property taxes last year was up $363,124. So you've seen an increase to the, because we're raising the county general every year, but Cume Cap and Cume Bridge, we haven't changed those rates at all.
And I get that.
So this is back to, did you want to take away from county general? You made $363 last year. Do you want to take any of that money away from county general to disperse it to Cume Bridge? Because yes, Cume Bridge is within the max levy rate for the county.
I don't think we can take away from county general, because it's a fact of life is that it's gonna cost more every year to run government. So we have to increase in assessed value and or the tax rate.
So now, like Paul is saying, now you're gonna every year need to leave something or talk to the commissioners out of their 2-year programs that every year they're gonna fund our
Some bridges.
Some bridges.
Well, you know, $267,000 worth. But you look at that seed it, and you may have those figures all in there, but there are a lot of years you don't use all that money. And it rolls over to the next plan, because that's what it is, it's a plan. It doesn't mean that you're gonna spend it. I understand that it hasn't been done for so many years, but I don't think that in itself is a reason to do it. But I think the argument's there that we're definitely gonna need money for our bridges. But how we both go about getting that money, I think, is what needs to be determined.
There is $100,000 in the CETA plan for 2013.
Right, yeah.
Bill, does the redevelopment commission give anything towards culverts or bridges or anything that's done out in that area?
If it's done in the TIF area, we will be doing
Any of these bridges in the TIF area?
any. You're kind of limited on what you where it is, but redevelopment commission up to now anyway has been very good
Maybe
about
Maui.
doing that.
They have in the past.
No, that's 500 South, that's just off State Road 9.
Well, I don't know if we've
Well,
spent any money on
150
bridges. Exactly, but
150 east.
Culverts you have.
culverts we have.
Also down to the 14 area.
So that's not a given price every year you do get.
Yeah, anything that affects the TIF area. Just like we paid for
Not that I'm seeing.
That's something to keep in mind, though, that if you get a bridge within the TIF area, is that redevelopment.
But you haven't taken anything out of CETA, cut highway funding at all, obviously.
No, we actually added another 150,000 to county highway for, vehicle for each year for the next 2 years.
It's gonna come close anyway, so.
What are you using the 150 for? Was put back in there because we didn't buy any house.
Right.
Is that one on roads?
We just
Well,
got
that-
rid of that project entirely.
Yeah, that project isn't in there, but we ended up, the courthouse, county community corrections wasn't in there before.
The end of the year was almost 860, the end of the year was almost 868,000. And, fund, I forget the beginning.
Unused funds.
Unused funds for seed at the beginning of the year was 868,000. It was on the last funds report I sent. And the same thing with, I'll just talk a little bit on King Capital, which is outside of the max levy. But either way, if you guys wanna reestablish these, you need to look at them now before we start a budget, because we got, but it's the same thing. If you look at page 2 that I've done for you, I gave you a little bit of history on the assessed value and how it's increased, and then told you what we spent money on for the year end. And you can see back in 2010, we had a healthy amount of 771, but when you only have revenue of around 216 or just a little over 216, and just like last year, 2 big projects come out of there, 174 for the boiler chiller upgrades and 170 some for the tuck and clean of the courthouse to Atlas. You're going to use that fund. So if you look at the second sheet, right now you guys have appropriations of 354 from your budget for 2013. We ended the year with 124, and we're gonna bring in 216. So, but just like today, when the sheriff had his cars, he knows there are 23,000. We appropriated 50, so we're looking at 46. So there's an extra 4,000 that out of that appropriation. But how long are we gonna keep that close to the budget? I mean, we just need to look better when you go to start doing the budget. You know, what the revenue was the year before you, in the year ending balance, before you start appropriations, or we're gonna have to decrease the appropriations. I mean, that's,
Is Cume Cap and Cume Bridge outside the max levy?
Cume Cap's outside the max levy. Cume Bridge is within the max levy, so anything you do here won't decrease the, county general.
And if we go up to .03, right now it's at .0162, if we go up
That's
to
the current rate.
.03, that'd be raising it $184,375 a year. And this is one of those accounts where it can maintain a balance.
Yes, they're all fund as a rollover, not used, just like the 4 we just talked about. Sheriff, it just rolls into the next year.
Right, so
to
it's
start
not
a
like,
balance. It doesn't go anyplace else.
Well, I support that we raise the Cume cap and we get ready for whatever hearings we have to have and get it done. The bridge,
I'm in support of Cume Cap, definitely not in support of Bridge.
you say you're not supportive of bridge?
I think though that when we make the jump on Cume Cap, that we, at least go to .03. That way we're building it up over time.
And then when you have a larger project, you'll have some money in there. But that's-
Mr. Chairman, one thing I will tell you that we're starting to deal with health insurance right now, and we were told that at least an 8 to a 15% increase on our health insurance again.
Sure. It's been like 20, in the 20s here for the last few years.
Well, the
We-
boilers and everything we've done to the courthouse, hopefully that'll be
Good for a
good
while,
for
yeah.
several years now, so.
Right.
You won't have that hit. And it seemed like we got hit pretty hard in the last year of things that need to be done, fixed up and everything, so hopefully we don't have that
And we
continue.
tried to put the rest of that into the courthouse repairs are in the CETA plan right now.
But the thing that really concerns me, and I know this is a big issue, but George just brought it up, that health insurance is something that we're gonna be faced to do something with.
And that's back in county general, so any increase you see to that, it's gonna probably eat up, if not use, everything that was brought in.
Last year,
Right.
that was a $300,000 increase.
Which continues my argument of trying to keep county general protected.
So,
George, I like vehicles in here, in this cube thing. It just looks to me like that with the price of fuel and with the mileage they're putting on these cars, it just looks to me that sooner or later someone's gonna have to deal with this take-home thing. I mean, I don't mind the take-home, that's not a problem with me, but driving them for personal use has kind of always been something that I've been concerned with.
Well, now we can control that because we get GPS units on those cars.
But they let them do that. I mean, they've never said you can't do that.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're abused, but to me, like I say, I don't have any problem with the take-home. Because I know they do some things going and coming, whatever, on the way. But I guess once they're home, unless they have to come back in to testify in court or come in for a training day or something, that's official business. But this idea of just running down here to pick up a movie on Sunday when they're off, or some of these other things that where I've seen them, I just think they're gonna have to curtail this mileage a little bit, and they're gonna have to get a little more out of these cars rather than just say, hey, we're gonna just trade them. When we passed them down, we still had some use for them. But because we don't do that anymore, when they're done with them, they're basically sold. And they can have, some more mileage on them, I think. And now they could get a car that's, I don't know how to say it, maybe call the lemon. It's gonna be problems, just nickel and dime you to death. It's probably time to be rid of it, without maybe excessive mileage on it. But I think we're gonna have to get that thing, give a little thought to that.
Well, and my question is, what is excessive mileage? Is 100,000 miles anymore?
Well, not for a lot of people, it isn't.
Right, that's the other thing. I hate to look at the vehicles and just, forget about them just because of the mileage that's on them. You can have a vehicle that has 125,000 miles on it that runs a lot better than one with 50,000 miles. And I'm sure they take that into consideration when they're trading those in.
Then also, if you take, like Jim says, if you take the mileage off, they use it for personal use.
How much longer would they last?
5,000 or 10,000?
Well,
That adds up.
And that's a policy issue. That's the and I don't know what our take-home vehicle policy is now, but that's a policy that the commissioners and the sheriff would have to determine whether or not they wanted to implement it, and then implement it.
well, then you take the other vehicles. I don't know where people live, whether they go home for lunch, or you take someone that lived out in the country or lived up south by Paula that had a county vehicle. If they go home for lunch, just home and back 5 days a week puts a lot of mileage on a car. I mean, I don't know who has the cars and who lives where and what they do with them, but I mean, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. The city at one time did that, and I think maybe they've relaxed that now somewhat. But this fuel situation, it just doesn't seem to go down. I mean, gasoline's high, and even at $3 a gallon, it's high. And I just think we need to at least look at that and think about it. But like I say, I don't oppose the take-home at all. I just kind of have some reservations about the use of the cars after they get home. And I don't know whether everybody has other vehicles or whether some of them rely on the county vehicle to be their main mode of transportation or not. I don't know whether that's the case with anybody or whether it is or isn't. I don't know.
So I guess, is the council asking that we, the commissioners, look at that?
Well, just at least look at it. I mean, maybe it's not something that's feasible, but it's, when you see in here that you're getting vehicles out of the cume cap, and then you tax other things out of that maybe, that thing's used to be used for taking care of buildings for one thing. And we need to maintain what we own, but I don't know, we need to provide transportation. And I'm just saying it's something at least to look at.
Right.
I'd like to change this. Something hit me just now, and I'd like to maybe change the subject a little bit, and that is, I have noticed some police agencies allow smoking in their cars. Do we allow smoking in our cars?
I don't think we
You're
do
not
on
supposed
any
to,
county
in
vehicle.
the policy
Any
manual
county
you
vehicle.
don't, but I don't think that deters some of the highway guys from doing it, and I don't know about any officers.
I don't know about any officers.
Good deal. Thank you.
It's a hard thing to police.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back to the
Thank you.
cum cap and
Do you
No,
guys
that's
wanna
all right.
wait, look at these numbers? I know it was a lot today, but I think that for advertising purposes and timing for the budget, that you need to give Brandon an answer, our direction by March, and look at your own cum cap, by March.
When's the deadline to change any of these?
Well, we want them advertised and approved by May, so when we start the budget for
So we need to,
20
by March next month, decide what we're gonna do and then do it
Get
in
them
April.
advertised in April, right, is what we were looking at from last year. So,
Well, we have to, have to maintain the bridges, we have to maintain the buildings and equipment. And that money's gonna come from tax money someplace.
That's correct.
that's what we're looking for.
So
some
do we wanna
direction.
raise the rate and do it that way?
Well, was the consensus not to raise the bridge fund?
Well, and I think we need to.
Brandon,
If I could, please. The rate, when you're replacing 2 bridges per year, is we have 89 bridges, so that's a 45-year life cycle, okay? If we take that to a 60-year life cycle, then you're replacing 3 bridges every 2 years instead of 4 bridges every 2 years. And I looked at the numbers for that too. Instead of that 607, you can make it 520. And that's all we're bringing in. So that means there's no money for bridge inspection, no money for culvert replacement, no money for bridge repairs. Or you're taking it to an even more than 60-year replacement cycle. And I'm saying that at 60 years, you're just treading water. 45, we're at 2 a year, 45-year cycle, we're gaining ground. But we're not there yet. We've still got a lot of bridges that are rated at less than 20 tons. If you go less or more than 60-year replacement cycle, so less than 3 bridges in 2 years, you're gonna start losing ground, and we're gonna be back in the same situation that we are. The insurance thing is, 1, out of our control, and 2, very unfortunate. You know, we all get paid out of county general, trust me, I don't wanna see county, when we can't cut anymore, not in this building. But I'm gonna venture to say that just about every one of you crosses over a bridge when you go to work. And I just am requesting that you don't just discard this situation, because if we don't do something, we're gonna get back to the point where we're losing ground on this.
wasn't your 2 biggest bridges that you have, when they just redone?
Not the 2 biggest, no.
They're not the
No,
2
if you
biggest?
look at that plan, there are 2 bridges that are estimated at over $700,000 to repair, or to replace. Another one at 530, and several over 400. The 2 that we just replaced, those were $400,000 bridges over the Eel River. So it's.
And that's just a, if you get that 100,000, take that off the 724, it would drop it clear back up to only raising the rate by a penny. But still, a penny's 100,
And you're gonna have the property tax values go up too.
go up a little, yeah.
I mean, if you look at 2012, we were bringing in 282,000, or 2,282,000, now
You got that
2012,
SDI expansion.
471. So you're gonna have some increase. And I'm not saying let's forget about our bridges here. I'm just saying, let's look at every possibility we have before we
Other revenue.
fix ourselves into decreasing. And this is something we can do any year. It's not like we have to do it this year. Something we can do next year. If we see the health insurance is increasing and
George, I'd like to find out or help you, or I'd like to find out why we're not getting our vehicle tax back here.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we're not getting it back, and they didn't do us right, or they, so, I still say we had an opportunity to raise